Holly Kim knows a thing or two about votes for women. She worked her way through Northeastern Illinois University in Spanish and Latin American studies while volunteering for Congressman Gutierrez in Chicago. As a community organizer, Ms. Kim protested for fair wages, led candlelight vigils, and hosted a peace walk to address tensions between the community and our police. And in 2013, Holly was elected trustee of Mundelein, Illinois, becoming the first Korean American woman in office. She ran for mayor of her town in 2017 and lost by just 5 votes.
Aww.
So, it reminds us of the value of each and every vote that we cast. Holly is a strong believer in perseverance and determination. And if you haven't figured out yet, that's a little bit of the thematic threads that we have going through this afternoon. She won her election through that persistence and determination for Lake County Treasurer in 2018. Please help me give a grand welcome to Holly Kim.
So, welcome to present day 2020.
Thank you.
It's funny because the number one question people always ask me is, what made you decide to run for office? They go, did you always want to run for office? Did you study political science? And I said, oh no. I think if you would have asked me back then, like, hey, do you think you'll ever see yourself in office someday? I would have been like, you're crazy because I hate politics.
Oh.
And I think honestly that's kind of the take that some of us have. It's divisive, people don't like to talk about it, and honestly in the last 7 years, just being thrown into this arena, what I've realized is that a lot of the saying is true, all politics is local. I'd say back in 2012, a friend and I started going to village board meetings, and boy, if you ever want a date night that's really exciting, it wasn't a date, but go to your local village board meeting for date night and bring your own popcorn, because sometimes it goes on for 4 hours, sometimes they're really arguing, and it's about little things like garbage contracts, but it's amazing. And it stops just short of being the Jerry Springer show where they throw like chairs.
I couldn't see that.
But it's really amazing because things that I didn't think were exciting got really exciting to me, just sitting there listening, week after week. Or I'm like, man, I can't wait to go back next time to see what they say about, whether so-and-so gets their permit or whether so-and-so gets their fence variance while their neighbor doesn't want it, and things like that. So it happened that as I was sitting in that audience, there was a restaurant that wanted to come to town. And they wanted to fill one of the empty storefronts. And I was like, oh, great, the more of those, the better. And I distinctly remember them being voted down. Not only that at some point there was just some personal commentary from one of the people who make that decision going, I don't really picture myself going there, so I don't know if it's really what's for this town. And I said to my friend, I go, oh my God, I would totally go there. And now I know why there's only pizza. I was like, and it's funny because those of you who know me, I love food. And I'm like, there's not enough places with mashed potatoes, that's for sure. and other varieties. Where do I go for Indian food? Things like that. And so I said to my friend, I'm just so naive about this at that time. And I was like, if it was you and me up there and we voted yes, they'd be in town. And it hit me that it was all just a numbers game. This is the way it works, whether it's local, the state, or Congress, the majority gets whatever they vote on. So we went out for a beer afterwards, and it seemed like a half-baked idea, but I was like, let's do it. Let's run for office. So we cheered our glasses, and we were going to run for office. Yeah. And that's exactly how this all started. So what's funny is when you pull that packet and you go to your local village or town or state or whatever you're running for, and you pull this petition packet, and it says you have to get X amount of signatures to be on the ballot. Well, for those of us who are new and don't know how this works, I was very surprised to find out, like some of these towns, you only need 4 signatures to get on the ballot. Like I could just get my family to sign. And some of them, 12 signatures. Like I think it was Port Barrington that had 6, and I was like, all right, that's all you need to basically get on the ballot. And some of these elections, they're not contested. So if they're looking for 3 trustees and 3 people to submit these petitions, then all 3 get in by walking in and voting for themselves, right? So that's how it happens. And this is like the God honest truth. And so I would first encourage any of you who are everyday, normal, regular people to run for office more. Because very little stands between you complaining about things on Facebook, about how things are in your town, and actually being the ones who like decide on those factors. So that being said, we hit the ground running. I didn't have a party at the time, and everything I knew was based off of movies like The Campaign with Zach Galifianakis and Will Ferrell. I said, we got to put a dog on literature because apparently they're high polling according to that movie, and it's funny how like art imitates like real life. So we hit the doors knocking. I had a lot of moms helping me in different subdivisions. It was so bake sale, but that's what made it very America and very wholesome, especially for a town like ours. So I ended up winning that election in 2013, and I got in. And thank you. And my friend didn't. However, he was soon appointed to Plan Commission. So if there's a lesson in there, it's that if you show that you love your town, I mean, there's really a space for you. Even if you don't win an election, you win something, right? You can still serve in so many ways, and there's so many commission openings in every single town, and they need people to volunteer. So that being said, I got in as trustee, and I got to see how the sausage is made, right? I got to see how things are negotiated. I disagreed with a lot of it. Maybe it's because I'm new and I'm an idealist, or some would market it the other way and say, she's an outside point of view, not a part of the establishment. I've been to so many coffees at people's homes where they try to of the other board members, where they try and sway my vote and say, you need to vote this way because X, Y, and Z, and blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, I thank you so much for your valuable information. I will take it into consideration and make sure I vote the way my heart desires. And they're like, well, hold on a second there. Like, aren't you going to vote the way I want you to vote? And I'm like, I was under the impression that people voted for me, so I had my own voice and my own vote to represent them. And so that didn't go over that smoothly, but I still think there's a lot of merit to that. For a couple of different reasons, including a very controversial incident that happened in town, I felt that we needed a different mayor to run. That being said, I did what anyone else would do. Hey, you should run for mayor. You've got a lot of friends. I'd be like, Chris, you're really active in town. Like, could you run for mayor? Janine, you could make flyers and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're so active in the PTO. Could you please run for mayor? Like, Anna, I love you. You want to run for mayor, right? And so I feel like that's what a lot of us would normally do. In fact, we do it all the time. And what ended up happening was it's close to the deadline to turn in those packets with all those signatures. And I was like, that little voice that gets louder and louder, right? And I'm like, oh, no, please. And I'm religious, so I'm like, God, please, no, somebody else. But the voice gets louder, and then you go, okay, I think it's going to have to be me because no one's turning anything in, and so fine. But once I agree to do something, once I feel in my heart, like, that's what I'm going to do, I do it 1,000%. So after that, yes moment, there was no doubt in my mind where this was going to go. So that was it. I was running for mayor. And we announced by flash mob at the carnival. It was amazing. We snuck in a PA and everything.
Oh my God.
And yeah, once again, no party helping me or anything. I go, you know what? I was like, I've seen what others have done, and although I'm running for mayor, we are going to run it like we're running for Congress. So we had an English, Spanish team. There was an ice cream shop in town that made a custom flavor for me that was red, white, and blue. We gave out scoops, everything, every event I could go to, every door I could knock, every rock I could unturn, register people to vote, all of it. It was the most amazing turnout ever in the history of our town. No matter, that result, we have to be so, so proud that for a municipal election, that so many people turned out that the next time people had to run for a municipal election, they needed like 500 some odd signatures, and they were like, thanks, Holly, thanks a lot. Because usually it's low, right? It's the low number. So that election, I ended up losing by 5 votes. And that's why, one of the biggest messages really today is don't take your votes for granted. And there are plenty of people who do, but people have fought, sweat, blood, and tears, and marched in the streets and cried and been arrested so that you all have the right to vote, to the women here. Every single one of you matter. Every single body that's here. And so if you know anyone, even young people who are like, oh, my vote doesn't matter. Yes, it does, because you might, be turned off at presidential things with electoral college, but every other race, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, and it could be won or lost by 1 vote. And there was one downstate in Illinois where they had to decide it because it was a tie by a flip of coin. So seriously, like 1 made the difference. So after that race, I was like, okay, fine. You know what? I think it was a good run. And growing up with a dad who was JC's president and chamber president, I was like, I'm a community volunteer everywhere anyway. And I think it was a good run in politics. All right. So I went on vacation for 4th of July. It was the first parade I didn't have to walk in several years. So I took advantage of it. But by the time I was back, I had offers to run for state rep and state senate. And it was kind of like really nice because it was like being talent scouted as a college athlete, right? You didn't have a party. You did all this on your own. Heck, if you lost by 5, it meant you were pretty much as good as the other guy. So I was very flattered, but me being myself and like my independent streak, I was like, I really appreciate the offer, but I'm going to turn it down because based on my value matrix, and I've got 4 kids, 2 of them are going to high school, like I really want to go home at the end of the day instead of 4 hours down, 4 hours up, 4 days a week. So that was just me, but that's how I chose Lake County Treasurer. With a background in technology and management, I did work my way through college. My parents, they didn't afford any of it. In fact, I was pulled out of my classes because of non-payment of tuition. So I remember having that talk with my mom, going, you know what, Mom, I know you're having a hard time, so let me just pay the tuition myself. So I would work all day and go to school at night. It took 8.5 years, but by the time I graduated, I didn't have any student loans, but I also went straight to management. So it was nice. So I'm running for Lake County Treasurer at that time. And what I could tell you all when you put your neck out there, and this is probably obvious, is that haters gonna hate, right? As a great philosopher once said, right? And I think it's especially apparent as a woman when you run for office. Even though it was the year 2018 at that time, you'd hear things like, well, what about your husband? Well, that's it. Well, what about your kids? That one's a frequent one. And they'd say things like smile more or smile less or don't dress too cute because then they won't think you're smart and like all these other things that come out that I didn't realize were things until they said it. And it's so true and sad. That's why we still have a little ways to go, right? I think they brought us so far, the suffragette movement, they gave us the right to vote. We can't take that for granted, but we still have to push it a little further. So when they say things like, oh, but you're not experienced, are you a CPA? And I go, no, I'm not, but neither is the other guy, and you didn't ask him. So, this is really the interesting world that I want to point out to you is don't be afraid to run. Like I said, we need more everyday, normal, regular people who go through the struggles of life to represent the rest of us normal people who go through the struggles of life. And so when they say things like, and there's 2 sides to every story, right? There's 2 sides to every marketing. I have like a social media marketing background too. And it's interesting because I would talk to my mom about this, and she'd go, Holly, do you think you're too young to run? And I go, Mom, I'm almost 40 and my oldest are in high school. I hear what you're saying, but there comes a point where the flyers will say, Holly Kim is old and out of touch, and she doesn't know, Holly Kim is doing things the horse and buggy way. I'm like, it's going to be one or the other on the flyer all the time. There is no, what is the age where you're avoided of, either bracket? There isn't one. And it's all marketing, Mom. And so once you realize that, because on one hand they could be like, well, you don't have any experience. But then, like I said earlier, the other way is they're a fresh perspective and they bring new ideas. And so either way, there's this line in the middle and there's no buffer space. So once you realize that though, they're powerless. They're powerless to knock you down because you just meant it the other way, right? I mean, if I were to choose this side, you were going to tell me that. And if I chose that side, you were going to tell me this. So at the end of the day, you have to trust your heart and be like, I know myself. And this is what I am, and this is what I'm putting out there, and this is what I'm running as. So today, what I wanted to remind everyone of is, one, your vote matters. Don't let other people lose or win elections just by one, right? Go out there and make it count. Definitely vote your heart, the person you want in there. And we happen to have one of the Lake County clerk's voter registration tables over there. Anton, why don't you raise your hand? So, so that if you haven't registered to vote, or if you have kids who are attending today that are at that cusp where they can and turn 18 by the time they vote, go register. You can also get a mail-in ballot over there, and we have flyers saying when early voting is happening next, which is St. Patrick's Day. So pick up a flyer. It'll tell you what locations you can go to early vote. So 1, your vote matters. 2, we need more everyday, normal, regular people to run for office. I've said that a couple times, but I can't say it enough. If you don't feel confident enough that it's going to be you, people with tons of confidence and no ability to do it will run all the time. It happens all the time. And 3, let's just really celebrate this year. We've come a long way, baby, right? 100 years. 100 years of this right to vote. But that we are here in the year 2020. We have so many women who run for office and got in 2018. And we're going to keep pushing that bar. We're going to keep moving it forward. And like I said, there's still a ways to go, and we're going to push it there.